Hey everyone, Chris here, and in this two-part beginning photography series, I'm going to show you two alternatives to auto mode when taking pictures on your point and shoot or DSLR camera. These two modes are ones that I use almost daily when taking pictures of my family, traveling, or when snapping a couple quick photos on a corporate video shoot. These modes allow you to shoot with the ease of automatic mode, but to achieve better results in your scenarios. You just need to make one decision in each case, and then you'll be good to go. The two modes I'm going to talk about are Aperture Priority Mode and Shutter Speed Priority Mode. In this first video, I'm going to cover Aperture Priority Mode, how to use it, and most importantly, when to use it. I'll do the same for Shutter Speed Priority Mode in the next video. Let's get started. If your camera has a dial like this one, perhaps you've left it in the auto mode for as long as you've owned the camera. That's okay, but our goal here is to expand your horizons and give you two more options to work with. To activate Aperture Priority Mode, spin your dial over to the AV option. Now, before we talk about the settings, let's explain what aperture is. Aperture is a component inside the lens of your camera, and it dilates just like the iris of your eye. The more open it is, the more light comes through and the brighter your image will be, and vice versa. The measurement for this is called f-stop. It's usually written as an F followed by a number. Here we can see my camera is set to an f-stop of f2.0. On this camera, I can go as low as f1.8 and as high as f11. So why should you care about aperture and f-stop? Because this is what helps you achieve a blurred background that helps the subject of your photo really stand out. This is called having shallow depth of field. Generally speaking, the lower the f-stop, the blurrier your background, or the shallower your depth of field will be. This applies to the foreground as well, but we'll simplify things here and just talk about blurring out the background behind your subject. Take a look at this photo. The first one is taken at f1.8 and the second is taken at f11. Take a look at the difference between the background here. In the first one, the background is very blurry. It's hard to tell what some of the background objects are at all. In the second one, they're almost just as in focus as our subject itself. The first one looks much better in my opinion, because it really focuses the viewer's attention on the subject. Once you're in the AV mode on your dial, I suggest setting your ISO to auto, at least to begin. This helps make shooting in Aperture Priority Mode easier and more like what you're used to in auto mode. Then the only thing you have to adjust as you shoot is the f-stop itself. Now, let's talk about some situations where you might want to use this mode. If you're taking a portrait, especially one where your subject is looking at the camera and they're posing for you, then this is a great mode to use. Make sure that your f-stop value is as low as you can get it, and you'll enjoy some nice blurry backgrounds. This mode is also great for taking photos of still life objects where you want a blurry background, things like products and food. Another tip for achieving a blurry background is to have a lot of distance between your subject and anything that's behind them. The more depth your location has, the more you'll be able to isolate your subject from the other things behind them. That's because as things are further outside of that shallow depth of field, they become blurrier and blurrier. On the other end of the spectrum, if you put your subject right against a wall, you won't be able to blur the background no matter how low your f-stop goes. That wall is just too close to your focus point. You can also use this mode in scenarios where you specifically do not want a blurry background. This includes things like landscape and architecture photography, where you generally want everything in the shot to be sharp and in focus. For these, just make sure that your f-stop value is high. I think f9 is a good starting point for landscape photos, but play around with what works for your particular situation. Lastly, there are some scenarios where I would advise against using Aperture Priority Mode at all. These are generally situations where there is a lot of action. If your subject is moving quickly, then having shallow depth of field can make it really difficult to keep your subject in focus and capture the right moment. Okay, that's your intro to Aperture Priority Mode. If you have any questions at all, please leave a comment below. And please check out part 2 in this series, where I'll showcase the Shutter Speed Priority Mode. Thanks for watching, and happy shooting.